My name is Jordan, also known as J Monster. I'm being joined by Cannon Fodder for our much-awaited, I feel, dev Q&A. So we've got a list of questions here that we've drawn from the community, and a few other things beside, a few questions that people didn't really touch on, so we're actually going to go over them. A lot of them have to do with like new animations and things like that. And if you guys want to post some extra questions to us down in the comments, then we will make sure to try and get those answered for you to the best of our ability. So why don't you say hello, Cannon Fodder?
Hey everyone, I am also joined by little Cannonball, so hopefully he'll be good. You may hear him in the background a little bit, but I hope everyone's well and the season is going good and that everyone's Christmas shopping is doing their thing.
All right, so I see no reason not to jump right into it. So I will take the first question, and Cannon Fodder and I will just alternate from there. There's quite a lot of them. I think we've got somewhere around the neighborhood of about 20 or so. So yeah, hopefully all your questions for the new patch will be answered, and this will be enough to get you real excited. So our first question here comes in from Gondorian Smith, and he wants to know, are there any old factions going to get some reworks skin-wise? Perhaps some slightly different armor and colors and such. Kind of want to see Gondor units with the darker gray armor, rather, like the movies. We actually had one of the developers, Timo, chime in for this one. He mentioned that Khand will be getting a few new reskins, along with Orc Fodder from Mordor are going to be getting a new look, an updated look, and a lot of a lot of data units that have been around basically since Third Age became a thing, like the bow and the sword Quendi and the Lindon Longspears and things like that. Really classic units are actually going to be getting a quite the overhaul in terms of their upgrades. So models are now meant to reflect their stats a little bit more closely, and hopefully the bow and the sword Quendi will do that for you guys. We also have Sin's take on it here as well. He says it's a little bit more complicated. There's a few new factions replacing old factions, like Cardalin replacing Eriador, and Arthedain replacing Arnor, and Rhudaur being added. All the new Rhudaur units from Gundabad are being added to Rhudaur. Numenorian Shield Guard, for example, a unit that's been in Third Age pretty well since the beginning, are going to be getting some faction-specific reskins. So, i.e. Mordor Shield Guard will be visually distinct from that of Umbar. Balrogs also have been removed for the time being. Merchants, a very old unit, I think that have been around again since Third Age's inception, are going to be getting the same treatment. There's going to be faction-specific reskins for every merchant. So Dol Amroth, Eriador, the dwarves, and I believe Umbar as well are all going to be getting an appearance that reflects the allegiance to that particular faction. So, for example, there's a black and red merchant for Umbar, green and black for the dwarves, etc., etc. Wargs are also getting retextures, I believe. Khazad-dûm and Erebor have been split, and units from DAC have been added, and there'll be some new skins coming for these factions as well. Rune is the same for the time being. Rune is pretty well unaltered. Khan's Brotherhood units all have new looks, which are actually really cool. I think they're also getting a new Halberd unit, which might be getting some custom skins for that as well. Gondor, I think, is getting a new horse for their bodyguard unit, so you see a new and improved Gondor bodyguards. Harad's getting some new Serpent Guard models and their armor upgrades for the Serpent Guard, and a new bodyguard unit along with some Trollmen, who I think are getting some updated textures as well. Dalian units like the Spears and the Cav and Marksmen will have new upgrade models, which I've had an opportunity to look at, and damn, are they cool. And the Gundabad Witch Realm Blackguard will be getting a new model as well. So long and short of it is yes, but apparently there's a little bit more complicated than that. So let's pass to our second question.
Yeah, so we've got a question here. So it starts off quite informal, actually. So it's like, hey, dude, I've got a question. And this basically comes down to sort of Rhudaur. Basically, it's a long story cut short, is that it looks like a human version of Gundabad. It looks very similar to Harad in terms of strong infantry and AP. But what has it got really to make it unique? Obviously, Harad have Mummakill, Gundabad have Witch Realm. So what's special about the faction? What will make it interesting to play? Or does it make it different for players on how to use them? What kind of style to maximize its use? Up until now, I confess I'm not seeing much special about it that justifies its existence as a faction. Oh, that's a real shame. I like the Vikings, but never mind. Okay, so Sin's the first one to come back. He says, Rush Factions focuses heavy on heavy infantry with a lot of javelins. They're more durable than Harad, and while Gundabad may have a bit more durability and a little less skirmishing potential. They also have less deadly cavalry than Gundabad, but they also lack special support units like trolls and witches. So basically, what Sin's saying in his response really is that they're a little bit sort of more durable than Harad, but they come with some really nice sort of javelin units, which would be good for that mid-range. And if anyone remembers what it used to be like when you used to be able to get Mahad Tribesmen before they got a little bit nerfed, you can remember that they were pretty versatile in sort of their positioning. Von Mountain also throws in his 2 cents. So he says, while Gundabad uses more heavily armored, specialized infantry like the Hammerers, Blackguards, and support units like the Witches, and heavily armored cavalry like the Witch Realm Inquisitors, and of course trolls, small powerful units that require more resources to bring and use for micro efficiency. Harad meanwhile focus around lightly armored offensive playstyle with the Mummerkill that require pre-planning, micro and resources to bring and use maximize them effectively. There is also super elites like Demons of the Desert and the New School Crushers.
Bring and maximize their
Yeah, so very powerful but vulnerable.
says. It sounds like you're cutting. My goodness. I
Oh
think we
wow, Discord is not favoring us in terms of being able to have a steady connection. It sounds like we can. What do you want to do? Do you want to restart and maybe try through a different ability to call one another?
Nah, let's keep going. Well,
Let's
and
just
if it
smash it
becomes a
on.
problem, then we'll switch it up.
Well, since it's me that's doing the recording, they will all have heard me fine.
Ah, gotcha. Um,
The roster is so Ruida's roster is different in that they currently lack specialized units. They're a shadow reflection of Arnor, which means they're a bit more generalistic, less defense, and more shock focus. They have access to only light medium cavalry and some decent archers. Many of their units will also have a small amount of javelins, making them deadly on the offensive, but also be able to break up enemy lines charging their own. So basically, what the response here is kind of along the lines of that. Yes, they're not going to have specialized units, but they're not going to be as expensive. But they're going to be more heavily armored than, say, Harad. But they're going to be a really nice sort of good pushing, good strong rushing force and overwhelming, which again, I know I hark back to it, but anyone sees when J Monster did a Gundabad charge on Kuro, you'll see how effective it can be if you can take someone by surprise.
he'll
So
never live it down.
he'll never live it down. I will repeatedly bring it up whenever I can. But hopefully the call remains stable and we can keep going. But Jeff, you want to pick up question 3?
Absolutely, and I think this is one that is on everybody's minds. So this one comes directly from Heath Horton, but it's a question that gets asked a whole lot. When will the patch be out? There is no single answer to this, and everyone on the dev team, I think, wants a sufficient amount of time to get this tested and to get it out to you guys in a really solid state. So the tentative answer to that is December-ish. Although Timo is a little bit more vague on that in that regard. He says when it's done, we have to have a strong patch release, and I think that that's a priority for the rest of the dev team as well. So, question 4, back to you.
Yeah, I guess I would hark back is that actually it's done when it's done. In some respects, this is going to be probably one of the biggest patches we've done, if not the biggest after the original launch. So we'd rather get it in the best state we could do. But we're hoping to get it this side of the new year. Question 4, Wood Realm. Will they be good? Well, yeah, I mean, they're pretty good currently, but we have a few responses here, so bear with me. So Timo goes first. He says, it depends on your perception of good. Currently, elves feel like stand and shoot and win. I want to add a bit more skill level to the elves. You will lose if you don't move around. Elves are supposed to be the lowest in quantity, but the highest in skill. It makes the most sense for elven commanders, therefore, to require a certain situational awareness to be effective. Woodland Realm lacks armor and will be more focused around movement, hit and run. Their cav will also be toned down. They will lose in a straight fight with heavy cavalry factions like the Lamroth. Currently, the Elven factions play very similar as well, and we're looking to change that in 0.95. Mirkwold will be archer focus, and Langis will be more infantry focused, for example. This goes on, so Von Mountain comes back. He said the idea is to make every faction good in their own way. They won't be as powerful as they are now. They'll be factions naturally that are slightly better than others, but that's acceptable. Right now, the Woodlands Realm, with a good player at the helm, have a solid chance of winning their games. They will be reasonable, which is what we're looking for in this patch. They'll still be beatable by the average player. Sin sort of follows up as sort of rounding it all off, I suppose, which he says the elves are focused around smaller units. They're focused around quick movement, strong melee defense. While wood elves are less heavily armored than, for example, Linden. They have strong defensive and aggressive cores centered around pikes, cavalry, javelins. They're also very micro heavy. The Woodwell, he calls them the Wood Elves rather than the Woodland faction, which is why I keep stuttering there. Rely heavily on their archers, melee defense, and they're going to be slightly similar to Lothlorien, but their offers will force them to play differently. And then he goes on to sort of talk about some of the examples about how the veterans are the only god tier bow unit in the Elven rosters, making them deadly, but they're also very expensive. Mirkwood has better shock cav than Lothlorien in the form of Pathfinders. And in summary, though, he basically says that Mirkwood's cav and melee are better, but the skirmishers will have the edge in a 1v1 fight. So kind of similar from the Maul, really, which is that right now you can be quite static, you can sit where you are and you can basically be victorious, and they want to make tactics become a much bigger play and a much bigger idea going forward, which is what I think people will see sort of larger changes in regards to. So hopefully that answers that question.
All right, thank you, Ken Fodder. Now, question number 5 is one, again, that I think is on a lot of people's minds. Will crossbows be getting their ammunition lowered? The simple answer is yes, but Von Mountain and Sin go into a little bit more detail. And this question comes to us by Bran Vale, by the by. Von Mountain's take, ammo for all crossbow and archer units are being lowered across the board. Sin had a little bit more to say in that regard. Crossbows are a lower range in ammunition, but they will do more damage than arrows. Arrows have the lowest damage of the projectiles, throwing axes, javelins, crossbows, for example, but have vastly superior range. Javelins have lower range than crossbows, but do a similar amount of damage. Throwing axes, on the other hand, have the lowest range, but do the most amount of damage. And it is important to note that the javelins and the throwing axes are all AP, as well as the crossbows. Of course, they're going to be retaining their AP bonus. But I can tell you from having done many of the stats myself that crossbows are going to have a lot less ammunition, but they will do a lot of damage. Moving on now to question 6. Ken Fodder, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so the next one is, so someone's suggesting basically a heavy cav unit for Elandris. The Wind Riders of Glorfindel, I think, is what they're looking for. So a heavy cav unit that looks like the Knight of Annuminus, but with red rather than black and gold instead of the silver horse. An elf, obviously, on it. But with a white shield with yellow lines on it, you could always add your own ideas with this. So he's basically proposing a possible unit for a sort of heavy armored cav unit for the Elvens. Sin comes back. He basically says it's an interesting concept. If we can find space for it in our balancing, we'll definitely consider it. That being said, there will be Elven heavy cav reskins in this patch. A lot of Elven reskins apparently. And they're also going to be getting some serious overhaul in terms of their looks. Yes, Harrison is a little bit restless.
Hello, baby.
Let's just say they'll see more battle ready than ever before, is what Sin's saying.
I can definitely tell you that will be the case. The Elven reskins are really, really nice. Let's move on to question 7. This one's interesting. Will there be any good teams with Flaming Shot? By this they mean this being Kenneth Quirk, who sent in the question. He wants to know if the good factions will be getting a unit similar to the Witchers. He proposes the possibility of a Students of Tom Bombadil unit, for example. Sin actually had... I expected this to be a no, but Sin actually had an interesting response to it. He said if they added any kind of magic unit related to the Witchers on the good guy's side, they won't use fire, but a different colored animation, since now the team has the ability to implement new magic animations, which is pretty exciting. So we could see some of those like kind of clutch units like the Witchers making their way into the good side. It's not entirely unheard of. I know that Call of Warhammer has done that quite successfully, so possibly you may see that in Reforged in the near future, or in some point in the future in any case.
Yeah, so moving on. So this is probably one that's close to most people as well, which is, will Javelin still be such a hard counter to Mummakill? It almost makes Mummakill not worth bringing if they have such a hard counter. They're a classic unit, but it's a real shame that they get shut down so easily. This is by Kenneth, and I kind of agree with him here because I quite like Harad, but oh, and I think I've lost my image on the side. I think Harrison kicked the mouse, but there you go. You can have the dev QA back in front of you again. So the response we had here, there'll be a good counter. Yes, javelins are good counters against anything due to their high damage and ability to pierce armor and body. But I'd like to remind you that they lack range. The archers on the Mummakill will actually have more range than javelins. No, I don't believe Mummakill are that easy to shut down. You just have to use strategy to get the most out of them instead of pure rush. So yeah, so it does sound like giving you a couple of options in terms of strategy to use Motherkill. It does sound like the concept of javelins is likely to stay the same. So you'll just have to continue to be a little bit careful with the Motherkill, and maybe we'll see new ways of being able to use archers, and especially with the probably changes to ammunition, we'll probably see that a little bit easier to manage and control.
All right, question 9. This is a good one. This one comes to us from Chris Brock. He wants to know, are dwarves going to be faster? And I believe this is Recreus who came back with this answer. Maybe in the future for now, but no. Those little legs just can't keep up. If it becomes too much of an obstacle, we'll definitely reconsider, but for now, they'll always be slightly slower. That being said, the differences between dwarven units will be more constant. So you're not going to have your front line, for example, that gets way, way too far ahead of your elite tier unit. So I think that is a really nice change there for the better for the dwarven units. They'll be able to keep their forces as one contiguous block a little bit better than they can now.
Cool. Moving on. This is a question from John Black, and he basically says, "Will the new Black Numen? Oh, will we get new Black Numenorian units?" And the second question, which is a follow-on, is what new factions there'll be. So Sin comes back to this one, so he says, "Yes, there'll be some new Black Numenorians and even some reskinned, which will be placed into Umber." In terms of new factions, we've got Linden, we've got Khazad-dûm, Ruda, Cardolians instead of Eredor, and the Arthur Dane instead of Arnor, which is what we discussed earlier. So yeah, so there's a couple of factions are getting renamed, but also we're getting 3 new factions.
Just want to chime in there on the case of Cardolin and Arthadane. They will also be getting some reskins. I know that Cardolin in particular will be getting a lot of reskins for their roster, so that's pretty damn cool. Let's see now. Moving on to question 11. Oh, this is a good one. Does the team get compensated for all the work that's put into the mod? This one comes to us.
No. Well, no.
This one comes to us from Labo. And Kuro chimed in on this one. Not at the moment. We do have a GoFundMe page, however, and it definitely helps us out in terms of getting new software to improve our modding. So any support is greatly appreciated. Now, we can't link you the GoFundMe page, I think, right now, but when we upload this to the official Reforged channel, we will put that down in the description. So if you guys want to support the mod team directly, then that is a really good way to do so. But,
yeah, it's probably worth mentioning for people who have been with us for some time. We did used to have a Patreon, which we did use, but we felt that actually we wanted to try and it was hard because we wanted to give to the community a lot of what we were asking for Patreon, and we didn't find that we were helping our fans as well as we could do, which is why we've done the switch over to the GoFundMe, so that people who are say don't have as much disposable income, or perhaps aren't able to support us in that way, are still able to get access, because we really want people to be buzzed and energized. We really want to help build the community. So if you do have anything, then obviously we're more than happy to take any support, and it is really greatly appreciated. We do this off our own back, but that's the reason why we've changed away from a Patreon.
all right, question 12, I believe, is yours as well.
Yeah. So this is this is any chance of it being recreated in Attila by the wild card. So this did come up previously in a Q&A I did with Sin, we had a similar question, but the responses kind of remain the same, which is that there's currently no intention by ourselves to be able to do that, especially not with Rise of Mordor in the works, which, again, if anyone hasn't had a chance yet to have a look at Rise of Mordor, highly recommend looking at some of the fantastic work that they're doing there, especially in a game which, as much as I don't do modding, from what I understand, is very difficult, which is why they're not going to be able to produce for us the kind of campaign. It's almost impossible with Attila, unfortunately, as it stands. But keep an eye on Rise of Mordor. It looks like it's going to be fantastic, and certainly we can't wait to see if they get to pull it off in the way that it looks like so far.
It looks awesome. Anyway, moving on to question 13.
Does look pretty sweet.
It looks really cool. Not as cool as Reforged, of course, but it's pretty cool. So question 13. This one is actually a two-parter. This one coming to us from Gabriel Norrell. He's wondering which color theme he's going to go with, or the team is going to go with for Lindon. Will it be purple like the Long Spears and the Mithlon Nobles? And what kind of focus will that faction have? Aggressive, defensive, etc. The second part is which archer units will retain their good versus armor bonus? I'm sure that is a burning question on many people's minds. So we'll do the first part first. Sin chimed in with the colors for Lindon will be a white base with bronze armor and navy blue secondary colors for accessories like belts or sashes. Lower tier Lindon units will have a white base with a brown trim, since most of them wear leather. As for the second, almost no archers will retain good versus armor bonus. It is being removed from archers for the most part entirely. AP will only be used for javelins, crossbows, throwing axes, throwing daggers, which I think the Hashari are going to be getting, which is a new projectile, kind of cool. Two-handed axes, two-handed maces, halberds, daggers, and lances on horses. The only exceptions to this rule are the Dunedain bodyguard for Arnor, now the Arthedain bodyguard, the Dragon Slayers from Dale, and the Mordor Temple Guard. So Mordor is going to be getting an AP archer unit, which I think is really sexy because Mordor just doesn't have currently a whole lot to offer in terms of their skirmish line. They do have the Mordor Moranon bows, who are pretty damn nice with their 10 missile damage, but they will be getting an AP unit to throw into the mix as well. He does go on to say that these units will be unique, powerful, and limited to one per faction. So you're not going to have to deal with an entire skirmish line of AP archers like you do currently when facing down the High Elves. But let's move on now to question 14.
Yeah, I kind of feel like based on the way these questions are, you've given the dyslexic one the biggest lengthy long question answers.
I'm sorry.
This is like a four-parter, so this is quite a big one. So please bear with me, guys. So the first part of the question is because of the creation of the new factions, the Orcs of Gundabad seem to have less units now. The same with the faction of the Free Peoples. So the modders planning on making new units. So Sin comes back and he says that Gundabad will kill a couple new units and some new skins and upgrades, while the Free Peoples is just the same faction, so it's just renamed. So there'll be a couple new units and some new texture skins, but really you shouldn't see a massive change because really it's just a renaming policy. Next one is how many factions will have the merchant militia units with different skins? Kuro comes back and says at the moment, I like to say Cardolian, but you said it differently. But
Cardolan?
Cardolan,
yes.
Umber, Dol Amroth, Khazad-dûm, and the Dwarves of Erebora. About the new faction of Linden, are they going to give this faction golden armor and silver ones as per the Hobbit, or will they keep golden armor? So Sin says that they will remain gold. Linden is its own thing, nothing like DAC, white and bronze with a hint of blue, but Lemdris will remain gold. Part 4, are you planning on making custom units for every single important character from the War of the Ring? I don't know, like the Nazgûl High Berserkers, Saruman, and so forth. Balin will... Oh, goodness me. So Kuro says Balin will be in 0.95, which I didn't know about, is a general of the Khazad-dûm faction, while Eowyn and Galadriel are both in the works for future patch. So we're going to get some ladies, which is good.
Yeah, a little bit of girl power.
Yeah, although I still think that the wives of the should join their faction, so we probably will see the Roeder wives move over, or at least I hope so. It does seem strange that the Free Peoples fighting their husbands at times.
Although I just want to take a quick moment here and point out that Plunasmith thinks that you sound very sexy on the microphone. So I'm just gonna
Me,
throw that out
really?
there for
Well,
you. Yeah.
I'll
Don't
have you
tell your
know,
wife.
I'm not married, sir. Goodness me. But yeah, you'll be happy to know that I am investing in a new microphone um, at Christmas. So hopefully I'll come through even clearer for you going forward.
Hey. Moving
Sin's
on.
messaging me as well. He's trying to tell me as well that there's going to be a heroic general for Lyndon, but I didn't catch the name, so I apologize.
Interesting.
One to keep you baited. We'll put it in the comments below when this goes up in YouTube. I'm sure that Sin can jump onto the Twitch if he is listening, and he'll be able to name what the hero faction is, and I'm sure George.
Círdan. Oh, it's Círdan.
Oh, is that
The
what it
bearded
was?
elf. That is beautiful.
That's
So
pretty
Círdan,
sweet.
confirmed general for Lindon. That's pretty cool.
Cool. So all we need now is Half-Life 3 confirmed, and we've got a full circle.
All right. It's never going to happen. Pipe Dream, Half-Life 3, it's never going to happen.
It's okay, because we've got Reforged 0.95, so it's okay.
Yeah, that'll have to do. But moving on to question 15. Do you guys have any interest in creating a whole new game? I believe this one comes to us from Slam Dunk Productions. Just saying, in time and passion that goes into this mod is pretty impressive, and you guys don't get compensated enough, in my opinion. I've actually got a couple of answers here, one from Sin, one from Kuro. Sin, I personally am, and I'm sure other devs are interested in making new games, yes, but it's not an easy road, and it will take a lot of experience and hard work. Kuro is very concise on the matter, not enough skills and knowledge yet. And yes, being a modder is harsh. All support is welcomed. And I think we mentioned the GoFundMe page already, so that'll be something that gets dealt with a little bit
if we don't
more
get
at length.
compensated enough, I'm sure that. I mean, if Slam Dunk Productions is a production company, I'm sure that some of the devs would be happy to hear about some of the prospects of some support going forward, possibly. Question 16, which is a good one actually, but Harrison is a little bit grumbly. Will 1.0 be the final version? And also, Saruman in the Nuzlocke High, will he be made a general? In my opinion, he should be a general for Isengard. The current general should be in the Nuzlocke High unit. High for life. He was actually quite a good fan of us. I see him quite often in the YouTube videos. Oh, Harrison. Sin says 1.0 will probably be the final version, and Saruman, whether or not to put him as a general,
We'd rather not.
Oh yeah, sorry. We'd rather not put a general, as when you're gonna always have multiple Saramans on the field. If you don't, if you have more than one Isengard army, so basically what he's saying is that you're gonna have multiples. Well, if it's in a specific unit, you can agree to only have one army with it. So it's designed like that for the scenario and custom battles. Yeah, so basically what it is trying to remove just constant units of white wizard old men running around if you have multiple armies of Isengard, because it can look a bit perplexing when you can see them everywhere. Whereas for the purposes of creating the scenarios, which a lot of people do love, then you can basically just have one of them to make it a little bit more lore friendly. And seeing the response that we had from the Dwarven Rams, it sounds like lore friendly is something that's quite important to a lot of our fans.
That is actually something that's going to get dealt with a little bit later in here. So if you guys are waiting around listening for some lore questions, that is going to be coming up. Well, let's move on to number 17 here. This one's good. I think Gundabad should be part of Misty Mountains. Instead, there should be a Dol Guldur faction. Of course, Gundabad was its own fortress, but after all, it's part of the Misty Mountains. Is that a plan for the future? You could instead add Dol Guldur, which has its own kind of orcs and trolls. Is the patch going to be focused around infantry, more focused around infantry? Now, this is the really good part about it. At the current moment, archers and cav rule, and infantry isn't all that important anymore. And this one comes to us from Atenvaro Numenor. I got a couple of responses here. Von Mountain is going to be the one chiming in. Gundabad will remain its own faction, while the name itself would suggest only Gundabad. It also includes minions of the Witch King himself. So calling it Angmar might be a better idea. About Dol Guldur being its own faction, I'm not so sure. We could add a couple of units to Mordor, as it's the parent faction, but that is to be seen. As for archers and cav, they will both be diminished in power in different ways. Cavalry will have far less attack and charge overall, and archers will have less damage and less men. Also, due to reorganized armor and shield system, infantry can hold out a lot longer against hails of arrows. Now, on the topic of Dol Guldur, my sense from talking with Kuro, for the most part, who I think is going to be the one in charge of it, is that Dol Guldur will be its own thing. It's just not going to be in 0.95. I think that that's being reserved for like the 0.99 patch, the one that is just before the 1.0 final release. But I can get you guys some more information about that. I think Kuro might also be in the comment section, so he may have the opportunity to chime in in that regard. But I'm pretty sure the Dol Guldur will be its own faction. And I think that's all for the community asked questions we have so far. But we do have some extra ones that I posed to the team themselves, and there's some good stuff in there. So Canfar, do you want to take the first one?
Yeah, I can do. So well, first one looks like it's going to WK, which is sort of I don't apologize for anyone going to hear little Harrison. So the first one is about the Mapmakers team, about custom settlements that they've been creating. So that's with WK. It's like, do you mind telling me a little bit about what you've been working on in terms of maps? And WK's for the most part, I've added settlements before previously only used in campaigns or custom settlements to be available in custom battles. So you'll be able to have the full roster. An example of these would be Baladur and Weathertop. Then for actual editing, I fixed some collision and deployment for some of the maps. Most notable of these would be Hornburg deployment and Osgiliath building collision for both ruined and rebuilt versions. The one I'm more famous for, the Reforged versions. With these, I've edited the layout of the old maps, my goal being to make them more endurable in siege battles. 3 so far finished are adding additional paths to Edoras, expanding Rivendell, and then the biggest one of the jobs finished, Kea Andos, which is about 80 or 90% of the map is new. Along these is also Dol Amroth being the first one making from scratch, besides models I'm taking from various other settlements. Then for future products, rework on Gold Aldur, making Amon Lank, or Lank, I call it Lank, I suppose, and a good version of it, making Grey Havens. Oh, and Moria as well. We will see a reworked at some point, and the Phalangeal halls will be getting a back door. I think you may have to take over from this one. I think, Jay.
That's all right. I just want to say that I'm really excited about the Amon Lank version that will be coming out. For those of you unfamiliar with it, that is the name of it was called like the Bald Hill or the White Hill before Sauron took it over and turned it into his fortress of Dol Guldur. So you'll be seeing that before it was corrupted by Sauron, or perhaps afterwards when it was reclaimed by the Elves of Lorien. But that is pretty damned cool. But moving on to the second one here, this is a word from Crimson Behelit, who is one of I believe he's in charge of a whole bunch of different things. I don't think he does maps, but hold on, let me just turn that off for you. But he does a lot of other things like siege engines and the like. So siege engines sorry about that. My question is, can you tell me a little bit about what you've been working on for the mod and what players can expect to see in 0.95? Siege engines for 0.95, I can say for sure that Isengard engines will be added. These include ladders, a ram, and a ballista, which gets its own custom animations. The designs are all taken out of Peter Jackson's movies. These will temporarily, however, replace all Orc siege engines, by the way, until such time as new models can be developed for them. Depending on how work progresses, a dwarven ballista and a catapult will be seen in 0.95 as well. Otherwise, it will be for later patches, and along with that, in later patches, you'll see some Elvish and Mannish siege engines. A little bit here about monsters. There are plans to split the choice of units with the era system present in Medieval 2. Now, this is the one that the lore people among you, I'm sure, are going to be really interested in. Basically, this will consist of 2 modes for now, Reforged Classic and Reforged Plus. In Reforged Plus, there will be more monsters present, some of them who could potentially be game-breaking, so flying units, for example. I think we might see some dragons and some mounted Nazgul and things like that, and mostly things that are not seen in the Third Age lore. We are not sure which of the upcoming monsters will be present in which mode presently, but the ones who will most likely be there in 0.95, again, this depends on how much we'll be ready for the new patch, are Drake Broodlings, which I believe is a unit that is drawn from the Lord of the Rings series done by EA. Spider mounts, Shelob the Balrog, a new and improved Balrog, although I believe the Balrog is going to be one of the ones that's removed from the general rosters. Fell beasts and eagles. Tons of new animations will be added as well, ranging from two-handed mount animations to dual blade dancers to zombies. And now, before you freak out about the whole zombies thing, this is going to be for the Barrow Wights. So this is a lore-friendly unit. So the Barrow Wights will be getting their own custom animations, potentially in 0.95. You may actually see some beheading animations, and animations, of course, for the new Troll Drummer unit that is coming out from Mordor. Kuro also had something to say in this regard as well. Reforged Classic will have all factions and units except the more lore-touchy ones and no rebels. While Reforged Plus will have all units like Sauron, who is now working, by the way, spiders and Balrogs and rebels for all scenario battles, drakes and things like that as well. So if people want to play safe and by the rules, then they can play Classic, of course, and they can always play with some of the rules in Plus Reforged as well. But this way, it's better for everybody. Lore lovers get to have the Reforged Classic, where they don't have a lot of these kind of more crazy units, but if you want to experiment with them, you will also have that option as well. So I think that is pretty exciting. So I'm not too sure if Cannon Fodder is back just yet.
I'm here. Yeah, it does sound pretty exciting. It does sound like trying to give people the best of both worlds, I guess. So is it question 3 about the balancing?
Yes.
So this question was touched a bit earlier, but we asked one about the balancers to help make the new stat system what he thought made it different from the systems used in the past. So quite a difficult question you asked there for him, but basically, long short of it is, as someone who's played Reforged before they were part of the balance team, what's your overall impression of the new system? And how does it differ from the older one? Is it better in your opinion? Although I imagine they wouldn't say it isn't. What kind of differences can players expect in terms of actual gameplay? So it's amazing so far. So this is from Recris, by the way. So it's amazing so far compared to all previous balancing stats. I suppose this also answers your third question. Yes, it's a lot better. In what ways is it different? Well, there's a baseline for everything, and stats are actually calculated instead of gambled, which makes sure that units don't become too weak or far too strong for what they're worth. We've also finally got some ideas written down about how each faction's identity, which makes it a lot easier to work towards a game in which the faction is unique, yet still properly balanced to a different matchup with other factions. Differences in gameplay, we're really going out for it. Each faction has its strengths and weaknesses, so players will have to find out what faction matches their playstyle and how strategies to use to get the most out of the faction. That said, you can still try different approaches due to the baseline. Looks like he continues on to talk a little bit about some of the factions. So Rohan doesn't have to go full cav to win, which is always good to hear. Elves can still attempt a swarm tactic and win, although I imagine that might be a little bit difficult, but you never know with those Sword Quindi. And it's just going to be far more difficult. And I think that you can finish us off and take us home, Jay.
All right. So we had one final question that we posed to the entire team. And that is, in your opinion as developers and players, how far has Reforged come in 0.95 as a mod since the initial release, which I believe was like 0.5 or something like that came out probably about 6 or 7 months ago. And we have responses from a good portion of the team here. Kuro says, from 2 units and some stats to a full and serious mod. I don't know how to say that. It's not even comparable. WK also had some thoughts on the matter. Well, I've only been here since 0.85 and started mapping in 0.86, dev for 0.9. So I haven't been here for far too long, but even for that rather short period of 3 updates, it has gone way further than I could ever have expected since seeing first videos, especially the settlements, he adds. Crimson said that I wasn't here since official release, but I can surely say that Reforged has succeeded in becoming the most complete multiplayer experience from all of the predecessors, and slowly becoming the most in-depth of Third Age submods out there, while trying to push the limits on Medieval 2 modding possibilities, and the huge community to back that up, of course. And finally, we have a word here from Sin. For a mod that was solely developed to spice up vanilla with some DAC flavor, it has morphed into its own being. A very stable multiplayer-based mod, through which a lot of hard work and determination has reached a state we could only have hoped for. So that's
Yeah.
going to be.
I was going to
Go
say,
for it, Cannon Fodder.
I think I'd echo that. So I've been around with them for some time back in the early days of testing, sort of when we just did purely scenarios, and to think how far it's come since those days with, as Sin was saying, really just a little bit of a reskinning off of DAC. But since then, you know, we had things like the Isengard trolls, we had things like the Caragor, we had things like the Witchers, the Bombers, like so much has sort of been created, built, and sort of really unique. And it's if you ever went back to some of the really old videos that we used to do, it's almost unrecognizable from where it was then and what's come now. And some units which are staples now just never existed in the past, and that's just all from the fantastic work that we have in terms of a development team who really put those hours in to try and give the best they possibly can.
I agree. And oh god, what was I going to say? It basically does for the multiplayer what DAC does for the campaign. There's been an incredible amount of man hours that's been poured into it, and really the only reason we have it here is because of, well, the team who was willing to do it. That's Sin, Kuro, now Vaughn, and Recreus who have chimed in. Timo has been there for a very long time and has been working on. I think he did the basis of the new stats overhaul that we've got here, with Recreus and Vaughn Mountain stepping in to kind of finalize that. And yeah, it's been a ton of hard work. Crimson Bethlete doing a lot of really cool stuff with the new siege equipment. WK really just pushing the boundaries of what can be done with maps. We've got these huge sprawling maps, and a lot of that is really thanks, I believe, to him and to Sin collaborating on certain things. But WK has really kind of stepped forward and become like a huge map maker. So
yeah, and there's other things as well. Like Timo had his Timo testers. I mean, a lot of credit needs to go to our community. Like a lot of the work they did with Koro in terms of what they liked and disliked about factions in the early stages, the feedback that we've relatively sort of received quite regular, and sort of testers and people as well trying to find new avenues and new pathways, like Heath Horton, who makes his sort of RP sort of scenarios as well, just to keep that sort of I guess fresh blood going into it. And it's really exciting to see the community sort of support us and really be passionate about the game as well.
Mm-hmm. And I would like to mention a couple other things that I missed in my big spiel back there. One of the people that has been doing a lot of really amazing modeling work for the mod is Carindel. He's one of the more quieter members of the dev team. You don't see him too much. He's kind of does a lot of his work behind the scenes. And the amazing unit cards, like those beautiful professional looking unit cards that Reforged has access to now, all done. I'm not sure if they were exclusively done by Cowering Coma, but I know that he has really contributed in a big way to the unit cards. So yeah, the big thanks to the team for all of their hard work. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this so far. I hope it gets you nice and excited, a little bit hungry for 0.95, which will be coming up pretty quickly. I have word here that Cowering Coma exclusively does the unit card, so that's all him, baby.
I was also going to say, if any of the questions here haven't been answered, which you expected to see, please have a look at our official YouTube channel. There is a Q&A session I did with Sin. A lot of it is mainly focused about him as an individual and his background and past, but he does touch on some more generalized questions if some of them haven't been covered here today. Otherwise, I imagine this won't be the last time we do something like this, so please feel free to submit some more questions in, and I'm sure we can collate them.
Yeah, and we've got a few moments here. So if you guys tuned in late to the video and maybe you missed something that you were curious about, I think we got a few minutes. We could take some questions from the comments. One in particular down there, Cavtan, when is the patch going to be released? There's a little bit more of a detailed answer to that further or earlier in the video, but the team is going to shoot for December-ish, but I think the commitment is to have a solid patch release, so it'll be done when it's done. I would like to take a moment here and mention that there is mod awards going on right now. The December mod awards over on ModDB. So if you guys are longtime fans of Reforged, or if you are just joining us for the first time and you think that it's really interesting and you kind of want to get into play it, I recommend you go over to ModDB right now, right over to the Reforged mod page, and you vote for that mod for Mod of the Year. How many Dwarven nations are planned? I think there's 2. I believe there will be 2 ultimately. I don't know if Ered Luin is going to get added. I'm not 100% sure on that one. But I know that Khazad-dûm and Erebor will both be present in, I believe, 0.95, so this upcoming patch.
With stunty legs.
I'm getting word here from Sin of the Dark Cloud that there will be 3 dwarven factions in this patch.
Oh, well, there you go.
And
It shows what
fourth,
we know.
yeah. A 4th will be added later. Kenifar, do you want to take the next one about cavalry there?
I can't actually see it, I'm afraid, so you'll have to read the question to me.
Gotcha. Will there be a cavalry unit that does the same job as trolls to disrupt a formation?
Oh, goodness.
Sin, one sec. I got a quick.
I think this is one for Sin, who's the cavalry master, but based on sheer mass, I can't imagine that's too far away, but I'll let Sin pick it up.
No, it wasn't about that. It was just a correction from earlier. There's going to be 2 dwarven factions in this patch and a 3rd coming later, not 4. But sorry, Cannon Fodder, continue.
Oh, no, I was only saying that I think that I would defer to Sin for questions on the massive cavalry, but I think I wouldn't find it too surprising if we have something as powerful as that, but it's all about getting the charge off. But I'm sure that Sin will support you about any knowledge about mass and the pushing power of Cav.
I would expect. I can ask Sin right now, but I will chime in on that. I would imagine that some of the larger cavalry, like the Caragors, for example, that Mordor has access to, the Melkor's Chosen, along with the what are they called?
Not sure. Do you mean the Earls? They're pretty. They've got a pretty high.
Hammerguard.
Right. Hammerguard. Yeah, they're pretty strong too.
Getting word from Sin here. It's not set in stone yet. Cav is still being tweaked, so not really a straight answer that we're able to give you at this point. But I would imagine that larger monstrous Cav would probably be a little bit more disruptive, since it's just larger, and generally the philosophy is that unit models should be reflected in their stats. So I wouldn't rule it out, but at the moment, nothing is set in stone.
No, I mean, the thing about Cav is it's always been quite a difficult, tenuous one to balance as well as I think we'd hope. We've played around with Cav a lot in the past. I think if anyone remembers our very first tournament we had very early on, sort of Lancers became MVPs of those battles, as in certain cases they could win them and sort of destroy opponents, and we tweaked them a lot. So I think it's really just find that sort of nice niche for them. So I expect there's more work still to come.
For sure. Do we have any other questions, or does anybody else? You have anything that you missed, or some clarification, perhaps? It's looking like no. So I think maybe we'll call it there. I hope you guys have enjoyed this so far. It's a nice little look into the world of Reforged and what's going to be coming up in hopefully the next couple of weeks. Maybe that might be a little bit optimistic.
I was going to say,
but,
don't put out any dates for people for their Christmas calendars just yet, Jay.
I will give no dates whatsoever. I am not involved in that at all. It'll be out when the developers feel that it's ready. But I got one last question here from UMAD Commander. Let's get that in.
Hey,
Javelins.
Hey, UMAD.
Hey,
good pal of the community.
Will javelins be able to throw over heads easier? I don't know. Sin, you're down there in the comments. You want to take that one?
What I would say while we're waiting for a response from Sin, if anyone's interested, I'm hoping that maybe with the new patch and release that maybe UMAD Commander will redo his top 10, because I always find them highly interesting, and I was always extremely pleased when Snaga Javi's rated was so highly. I've been saying it for years, how they're the best unit ever, but UMAD confirmed what to be true.
I'm pretty sure he's going to do that. I follow along with his channel as well, and I think the intention is once the patch comes out that there will be more top 10 videos and stuff.
If you haven't seen them, I highly recommend you see them. Also, if you haven't had your fill of videos, if you're not yet subscribed to J Monster Jordan, I highly suggest you go and do that as well. He's got some fantastic videos.
Shameless self-promotion.
Well, no, I'm promoting you. It's slightly different. It's okay. You can still need cash later. It's all
right. That's right. Cannon Fodder's my advertising team. So the answer to UMAD's question, that being, will javelins be more easily able to be tossed over the heads of your own troops? The response I have from Sin of the Dark Cloud is maybe. He thinks so, but I think that one is going to have to wait for a little bit of clarification.
Yeah, ironically, I've found that javelins of late have been a little bit easier to set up. The thing I've had trouble with is was Umber's blooming crossbow unit. I could never get them to fire. And they're like really powerful
Yeah.
but really weak. So if you have them stand in the open for too long, they get completely wiped out. And they're just there
Hmm.
constantly telling me they're firing and never do. But I've found that javelins haven't been too bad of late. But maybe it's just some of the changes we've made to some of the maps have made it a little bit easier to get the angles.
Okay, but I think that's all the time we have for now. I actually have to take off, so that's all the questions that I'm able to stick around to answer for.
Again, if you do have any more, I'm sure that if there's seemingly a demand for these, we can do another dev Q&A in the future, and hopefully little Cannonball here will be slightly quieter, although he does seem to have calmed down now.
I thought he was great.
MVP, he's like what people come for. There'll be like comments below saying, "Why can't we have more Cannonball?" Like,
Yeah, Cannonball face reveal, please.
well, I'm sure that could be looked into at some point. Tell you what, if we get, let's say 300 likes, I think that's a fair amount. I'll do a face reveal of Cannonball. Yeah, there you go. Heard it here first.
That would be super cute. So I think we'll head off there. I hope you guys enjoyed so far.
Yep, I'll leave you all to it and have a lovely time. Do you want to do your famous sound off, Jay?
Okay. See you later, everybody. Bye bye.